to do.
What is up, YouTube? This is Hypergon, your chat with the cat, back again for another video. This time I'm going to do something that I've done before but slightly differently. What I'm going to be doing is a deck profile of a deck that does not yet exist for the TCG, Igknights. I've messed around with them a little bit, and I have to admit, they've actually been kind of fun. Probably not something I'd ever make in real life when they do come out, but fun enough to mess with on DevPro. So what I've decided to do is I'm just going to show you what I have on DevPro and just highlight that. It's not uncommon, it's just something I've personally never done yet, so first time for everything, I guess. I've personally really enjoyed how the Igknights work. For those of you who don't know, they are the newest variant of a pendulum deck that Konami has created. And the way that they work is that when you have two Igknight monsters in your pendulum zones, you can destroy them both to search your deck for another Igknight card. Now, what this does is that since Igknights, when they are when pendulums are destroyed, instead of being sent to the graveyard, they are sent to the extra deck. Which means that in their case, whenever they're destroying themselves in the pendulum zone to search off another Igknight card, they're putting themselves in the extra deck where they can be pendulum summoned from later. You're basically searching out things so that you can build up a massive pendulum summon that you can use whenever you need to. And it's pretty easy to pull off, actually, extremely helpful, especially if you can get off certain combos where it's essentially effortless. But, you know, to me, it's a more fair variant of it since all the Igknights are normal monsters except for their boss monsters, but this variant doesn't include those, so that's enough babbling for now. Without any further ado, let's just get started on that profile, shall we? Alright, so here's what I got right now. I run 3 of each of the Igknight monsters. I do this just because since they're all normal monsters, I really don't have any reason not to run them, especially since the deck is so built around just blowing through all of them, putting them in your extra deck so that you can pendulum summon them out later. So you really do need as many of these guys as possible. As of right now, there are 2 level 3s, 2 level 4s, a level 5, and a level 6, all of which are normal, which does open up some interesting plays, which I'll get to a little bit later. Next up, we have 3 Rose, the Warrior of Revenge. This card was originally something that was essentially not possible to use for the longest time. However, thanks to the Igknights, she is now usable. Her effect is nothing particularly amazing, it's just when she inflicts damage, you burn your opponent for an extra 300. Her usefulness, however, comes in the fact that she is a level 4 fire attribute warrior type tuner monster. That is where she comes in handy. Now the Igknights, I realized this just now actually, I told you wrong earlier, it's not that they search out Igknights, but they add level 4 warrior type monsters from the deck or graveyard to the hand. So not only does that search out all the other Igknights, it also searches out Rose. And since she is well within the limits of the pendulum scales, being 2 and 7 for every single pendulum monster, sorry about that, it allows for some interesting synchro plays on top of the various Xyz plays that are also possible. Now, these next 3 cards are specifically for a loop that are very common with the Igknights, and that is 1 Blackwing Zephyros the Elite, and 2 Summoner Monks. Now, the reason that these guys are in here is because of the Master Key Beetle lock. Now, since this guy requires 2 level 4 Dark monsters, I needed to use Zephyros and Summoner Monk. But what he does is that you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card to target 1 card you control, except for him, and then while this card is placed on the field, that card cannot be destroyed by card effects. Now, where this becomes useful is when you use it to target an Igknight card in the pendulum zone. So what you would then do is set your 2 scales, doesn't matter what, we'll just say Magnum and Eagle in this instance, and so you'll target, we'll say, Magnum. And then you will activate Magnum's effect to destroy him and Eagle. Well, Magnum can no longer be destroyed thanks to Master Key Beetle's effect. So, Eagle will still be destroyed and go to the extra deck. Magnum will not. But you still get off the search, which means that you'll be adding 1 for destroying 1. So you can just keep setting it, activating it again, popping the other 1, getting the search, and just keep doing that until you have as many as you need. Then you just complete the scale again, and then mass pendulum summon again. and do whatever you want with them. The play with that is hilarious. I have yet to pull it off, but I've seen it plenty of times to speak for just how ridiculous it can be. That's it for the monster count. It's only 22 monsters, a little over half, but not too bad. Next up, we run their field spell, Ignition Phoenix. Unfortunately, this cannot be searched out since it's missing the crucial K in any Igknight search card, but that's quite alright. What this card does is that it gives all Igknights on the field 300 attack and defense boost, which, you know, is nice. Most of them have pretty decent attack. Cards like Dragonov, which are normally 17, will suddenly become 2,000. And then guys like Magnum, who are 2k defense, only become 23 defense walls, both of which are pretty difficult to deal with. But that's not the real value of Ignition Phoenix. Ignition Phoenix's real value comes in its secondary effect, which states that once per turn you can target one Igknight card you control, destroy it, and if you do, add one Igknight card from your deck to your hand. Now, the reason that this is so good is because it's just an Igknight card. It doesn't have to be a Pendulum Zone, it can be a monster. So with that, you can just mass pendulum summon something out, get rid of them, and then if you want, you can add one of the boss monsters, or just any of the other pendulum monsters, as is the case of this variant, add them to your hand, and just do whatever you need to with them. Odds are you haven't used your normal summon by this point, so you can just go ahead and do that. Ignition Phoenix is one of those little hidden gems that I've just come to enjoy so much. It's part of the reason I enjoy field spells so much. I feel like they're really underrated. Most of them do pretty good stuff like this. Next up, since this is a deck consisting entirely of warriors, except, you know, for these guys, but oh well, we run 3 copies of Rhoda. Now this can search out any of the Igknights except for Riot and Caliber, since they are too high of a level for that. However, this searches out any of the other Igknights, all 12 of the others, plus it searches Rose, so that's 15 cards out of this 40 card deck you can search out with Rhoda. That's amazing to me. And for these 4, we have 2 Summoner's Art, since it adds a level 5 or higher normal monster from your deck to your hand. Well, coincidentally, these 2 fit the bill, which means that every monster except for Blackwing Zephyros and Summoner Monk are searchable within this deck. Part of the reason I've come to enjoy using it so much. Next up, since they are all normal monsters, we run 2 copies of Heart of the Underdog. I'm not gonna lie, I just put this one in. I haven't actually had a chance to test it just yet. But I was originally running Supply Squad, which wasn't working out so well since most of the destruction does happen in the pendulum zones, not the monster zones. So I'm thinking this will probably be a bit more useful. If nothing else, it'll definitely get you those extra draws. And so what if you have to reveal that you have Ignites in your hand? If you're facing these guys, it's kind of assumed that you will always have Ignites in your hand. Next up, we run some just obligatory spells. 1 Raigeki, 1 Dark Hole. I may swap this out for Book of Moon. I don't feel the need to run Soul Charge just because this is primarily a pendulum-based deck, and I can pretty much get back any of these guys easily if I need to. And then cards like Blackwing Zephyros I kind of want to stay in the graveyard so I can use his effect. Summoner Monk, I could care less. I mean, these guys are only really used for one thing, and I have 3 copies of Rose, so I have my tuners. And again, completely searchable by pretty much everything in the deck. So, and then 2 MSTs. I didn't really have room for the 3rd. I probably could make room, but I'm just doing this right now just so I don't have to worry too much about back row, and especially cards like Anti-Spell Fragrance, which are the bane of this deck's existence. Yeah, fun fact, you play Anti-Spell Fragrance against this deck, these guys don't get to go in the pendulum zones ever. It unfortunately locks them out completely because you cannot set cards in the pendulum zone, so bear that in mind. So MSTs are kind of necessary. And then this next one's kind of more of a fun tech choice. 1 Miracle Synchro Fusion. Now, because this deck can Synchro Summon, thanks to our good buddy Rose up here, I realize a lot of the really good Synchro monsters tend to be dragons, as we'll get to a little bit later. And there is one particular fusion monster that I realize is pretty useful, that normally is very difficult to make. And we'll get to that in just a second. Actually, I might as well just get to that now. The other 3 cards in the deck are just Compulse, Bottomless, and Torrential, just staples. So yeah, let's move on to the extra deck, shall we? This guy. Dragon Knight Draco Equest. This guy requires 1 Dragon-type Synchro monster and 1 Warrior-type monster. Now normally that's pretty dang difficult to make, and not a lot of good Warrior decks are able to make good Dragon-type Synchro monsters. Well, coincidentally, the Igknights are capable of doing just that, having plenty of access to easy Dragon-type Synchro monsters. So these guys do pretty well for that. This guy's actually rarely used, so I guess I might as well just let you guys know what it does. It can only be a special summon from Fusion Summon, which is why we have Miracle. And then, once per turn, you can select a Dragon-type Synchro monster in the graveyard, remove it from play, and then treat this card's name as that monster's name, and it gains the same effects as that monster until the end phase. And then while this card is in face-up attack position, any effect damage that you would take from an opponent's card effect is instead inflicted to your opponent. That's pretty dang good, especially when you consider the fact that this guy is a 3200 beater. This card is what I like to consider a bit of a hidden gem. Now moving on to the Synchros, we have one Black Rose Moonlight Dragon, just because, you know, I need some level 7 dragons, and then one Clearwing Synchro Dragon for the same reason. These are usually made with either Magnum and Eagle plus Rose. And then for Musket and Dragonov plus Rose, I have one Stardust Spark, because I don't necessarily want to negate all destruction. One Scrap Dragon, because destruction. One Hot Red Dragon Archfiend, because destruction. And then this guy, one Explosive Dragon Knight Ignister Prominence. What you do with him is that you can, once per turn, target a Pendulum monster on the field, or one card in either player's Pendulum Zone, destroy it, and then shuffle a card on the field into the deck. Pretty darn good. Then we got one Leo Keeper of the Sacred Tree, just in case I can do the 10s. Mech-equipped Anger, and a Ghost Drake Alucard for the rank 3 plays. Photon Papal Operative, Castel, Dark Rebellion, and 101 for your generic rank 4 plays. And then the Master Key Beetle, as I said, just for the little lock that these guys have. So that's pretty much the deck. And that's pretty much it for my Ignites. Not too much more to say about that. I've been having some fun with them, and to really show you guys what the deck can do, for this week's Throwdown on Thursday, I'm going to be showcasing my Ignites. I meant to do it last week, but unfortunately I had a bit of a power outage, so I wasn't able to, and by the time I did get back up, it was no longer Thursday, so it just didn't really feel appropriate to upload it at that point. But regardless, this is pretty much just going to be the week of Ignites, so look forward to that. Don't forget to like the videos, comment down below, let me know what I did well, what you guys think of Ignites, whether you think they're good or bad, or anything else you just want to see me do. And of course, don't forget to also subscribe, and until next time, peace.